Welcome back to Sixes and Sevens Footy Nerd special guest. This is a bloke that when I was 4 years old, I admired watching the TV. I remember yelling at the TV going, I'm going to play for them one day. Bloke that's won grand finals, captain his state, captain his country, captain his club. The one, the only, Laurie Daley.
It's feel privileged that we're getting a guy like Laurie Daley on our podcast. I've had the privilege to be coached by Laurie. As you said, I love watching him play. He's one of my favourite players of all time and just a really good guy. So thanks for coming on, Loz. We're pumped about this one.
Well, Loz, thanks for coming on Sixes and Sevens, the footy talk, or we call them the footy nerds. I was saying to Pissy last night, it taken me back to a memory as when I was 4. I was when I first fell in love with the Raiders and watching the grand final. So it's, for me, as a Raiders fan, obviously coached by her, but it's special me sitting across from you today interviewing you about how you're going. So I guess first and foremost, how's life? Obviously back in the New South Wales helm, big sports breakfast. Tell us a little bit about what's going on, then we'll reverse the clock back to the days of June and where it all started.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
We appreciate it, Loz.
Again, really enjoyed both your careers and watching it, and gave me great pleasure. Toddy obviously playing with the Raiders, and I coached you in the country too, so that was always fun. Yeah. And then obviously Mitch coached you a number of times in State of Origin. So yeah, very busy at the moment. Obviously being back involved with the Origin team, something I never thought I'd get another opportunity to do, but really excited about that. It'll be a tough series, they always are, but one we'll be very well prepared for. And then the Big Sports Breakfast radio program, been doing that since 2018. Really enjoy it. We talk about sport, but it's predominantly, based out of Sydney, so we talk a lot of rugby league, but we do touch on the other sports. But it's a great job. Really enjoy the people I work with. And I've been very lucky, since my footy career's finished, that I've been able to fall into media roles. And the Big Sports Breakfast is one I enjoy. And when you're working with good people, like playing in a good footy team, if you work with good people or play with a good bunch of blokes, you always enjoy it.
So who's on there? Clarkie?
Well, Clarkie was. So Clarkie's
he's finished now.
Finished now.
Yeah.
He's got his own podcast, and he's over in the IPL at the moment. Commentating over there. Gerard Middleton. Gerard Middleton. And Middo's been there for, I reckon about 4 or 5 years. Well, we first started actually during COVID. So the three of us came together. So it must have been 2020. The start of COVID was, so we started February, and then would have been a week or two after we started, we had to do it remotely.
Yeah, right.
So it felt really weird because we didn't really know each other that well, and you're trying to bring a group together to bounce ideas and chat and talk. And you know what it's like.
So post-COVID, you're obviously all in the same room.
Yeah. No. We were doing it from home remotely.
So there's no chemistry there.
No, there's no chemistry. When you interview someone, awkward. You always find it easier talking to them.
For sure.
So we didn't know each other, but you'd be all in. I'd be at home, Clarkie would be at home, Middo'd be at home. So it felt really weird to start with. And we got through it, but we had no sport. So true. Basically we had no sport. All sport was shut down, and we were a sports show, but we sort of got our way through it. We bluffed our way through it. I don't know what we spoke about.
Yeah.
Probably the
sounds like me and Mitch bluffing our way through this.
What's the key?
That's what we did. We just bluffed our way through it.
Get really good at talking shit. Is that what it is?
Exactly. We made it up.
Yeah.
I think at one stage there we were talking the Belarusian Premier League.
Wow,
that's what we ended up. That was the only sport going.
So you have to do a lot of homework for shows like that. Like obviously as a footy player, you study a lot, and as a coach, but do you have to prepare a lot in this sort of stuff, doing it day to day? Because you have to know every sport. You're watching sport all the time.
Yeah, it's more about the guests that you get on.
Yeah,
you probably deep dive a lot more into that, and I think you guys would be the same as me. Rugby league's my sport, but I also take an interest in other sports.
Yeah,
I mightn't be across it like I am rugby league, but at least I know enough to be able to get my way through it. But then when you get guests on, you want to make sure you know a bit about them. So you really deep dive, and when you're interviewing, hopefully you can have a bit of fun with them as well, but also acknowledge what they're contributing to their team, and either the success they're having or the struggles they're having, whatever it may be. But I enjoy it, and I enjoy getting to know people on that level, because you feel like you give our audience something that they may not have heard before.
Yeah. You talk about rugby league being your sport, Loz, and that's why I've got you on our sixes and sevens. Started back in the Junee days. What was rugby league like for you? Was it just a passion? You loved it? Sort of take us through those early days, and then obviously you played a bit of centre. 5'8" was why we've got you on here for the sixes on my side. What was it like?
When I grew up in Junee, I loved rugby league. I can just remember watching the ABC game of the round, and you just sat there, watched it, half time, go out the back, kick a footy around. And where we lived in Junee, Robert Street, there was a lot of kids, and I lived next door to my cousin. So I'm one of 8, but I've got 7 sisters. My cousins are 8 as well, but they're 6 boys. So as you can imagine, I spent a lot of my time over at my cousin's house, or we're out the front, backyards, whatever, kicking a footy, passing a footy, and in the summer it was cricket. So I reckon you just learn skills from being in the backyard to start with. And then obviously started to play rugby league and found myself going okay at it, but always loved it, always passionate about it. I was a Rooster supporter as a kid. A bloke by the name of Kevin Hastings was my favourite player when I was growing up. He was a halfback.
Obviously. Was he from out
that
way?
No, he wasn't from out there. But I was just a massive Roosters fan. And then, he was my hero sort of growing up. And I can remember sort of the 74, 75 grand finals. And I would have been 5, 6. That was my sort of first memories of rugby league at that level. And just as I progressed through the grades, we played in a really good team. There was another guy that I played with in that team by the name of Jason Liddon, and Liddo went on and played, I reckon, close to 200 NRL games as well. Yeah. So it's pretty cool when you got 2 blokes from a small country town to go on and play in the NRL. But yeah, just loved it. But you played all sports. That's the thing. Well, Toddy, country sport. You got to play in all those other sports to get the numbers for their team to compete. So you played a bit of everything.
Everyone knows when you talk about your name, Laurie, the passion, you're a winner. Did you learn that from playing in the backyard with your cousins? As you said, you grew up with 6 sisters. Yeah. Was it that to being a leader to your sisters, or was it playing with the cousins in the backyard where you first learnt about winning and that passion? Because every time, even when you coach, experiencing you in the coach and listen to you talk to the players, it's about that passion and what it means to the jersey. Yeah. But then watching you play as a Raiders fan, it was everything.
Yeah, and that's something that I did learn from playing in the backyard, because when you play with, I'm sure it would be like playing with brothers, but when you're playing with family, it's win at all costs. So they don't care whether you're the youngest; they treat you like the oldest. And if you run the ball, well, you get smashed. Yeah. It's the way it was. And then in the street, there was a lot of kids in the area that we grew up. So an afternoon, you'd have the whole sort of, a lot of the boys and some of the girls actually would come and play, and it was just full on. And you had to be competitive, and you couldn't sook, couldn't complain, because no one would care. And if you didn't run hard, then you got tackled hard and you got hurt. So I think that's where I learnt to be competitive, and that's when you learnt that, if you're going to play this game, you're going to have to play it well. Otherwise, it's not for you.
Were you a centre 5'8" coming through the juniors, or were you more of a sixes or a centre until you went to Canberra?
Yeah, I played a bit at 6 and centre. Yeah. So it just sort of depended on sort of whether I was the best fit for the centre that day or to play 5'8". And we were lucky that in our junior team we had some really, really good players. But I sort of played a bit of both. I floated. But running was obviously my strength as a footy player, and that's something that I did as I went through the grades, I sort of didn't naturally know how to play 5'8" or know how the game worked, but I learnt that as I got older.
Who was the biggest influences to learn that? Because obviously you went on to be one of the greats as a 6. Was it till you went to Canberra around Sticky, or was it more in the juniors that you had a coach that taught you your passing and all that vision type of stuff?
Yeah, well, I was lucky enough, again, to have really good coaches at a junior level that taught you the core skills. So passing, tackling, running, those type of things, I got really from under 7s and probably from learning in the backyard as well, just naturally knowing how to sort of tackle and pass. But understanding the game, it wasn't until probably Tim Sheens came along in 98.
98?
Yeah, 98.
Wow.
So I just played. I didn't know anything about what to look for or what I was seeing. People would ask me about tackle technique, and it was just like, oh, well, I'm just going in, getting my feet close to the target and putting my shoulder in. So I knew how to do that, but then they were asking, what do you see in a footy field? And I'm like, oh, just give me the ball and I'll run. So it wasn't until Tim Sheen sort of broke it all down to me and said, well, I want you to understand that, some of the things you got to look out for is where defenders are, which is very simple, but I thought, oh, right, yeah, and what do you mean? What do you mean? I said, I know that. And he said, well, look at the field and just break it up. And he goes, if you're from the middle of the field and there's 2 markers and a fullback, how many people are defending in the line? And I said, 10. And he goes, yep. And he said, so what there should be from there is a 5 and 5 split. And I went, oh, right, yeah. And he said, the further you go across the field, you'll lose a number because one of the numbers on the short side has to go to the long side. And he explained it to me like that, and I got it sort of straight away. And then he started to tell me about why you get to different field positions and why then you put on certain plays. And I started to sort of think then, wow, this is genius. But a lot of people had known that, had been taught that from a very early age. But I certainly wasn't one of those kids. So then I sort of started to understand a little bit about how defensive systems work, and then learnt about how field position and getting to positions on the field dictated to you what sort of plays you were looking to throw at the opposition.
Yeah, right. So when you talk about the percentages, when did that come in? Was that early 80s? They talk about, I've heard Joey talk a lot about Warren Ryan was one of the original ones. That was probably before you came in, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I went to the Raiders in 1987. So my first year there was under Wayne Bennett.
Yeah, right.
And Wayne was a great coach. But Wayne, when he got to the Raiders, it was big about discipline and big about driving standards and competing hard. And then he took the Raiders to a grand final in 1987. Then he went to the Broncos, and that's when Tim Sheens came down.
Okay.
And Tim was totally different to Wayne in that regard.
Yep.
So Tim was really an analyst. Like, he liked watching opposition teams. He liked to come up with set plays. He liked to go in depth with the knowledge of a footy contest.
Yeah, right.
Whereas Wayne was more about keeping it simple but doing it so well and being disciplined about doing it.
When you say drive standards, laws around what Wayne brought, who was the catalyst at that in those days at the Raiders?
Yeah, for me it was some of the older guys. Guys like Dean Lance that had been around the club for so long, and Dean, I think, played at Newtown. Obviously was at the Raiders, but they were sort of getting towards their end of their careers. But they were sort of hardened professionals, and Dean had a bad knee, but just would never miss training.
Yeah.
He'd be hobbling at training, and they'd encourage it at, unless you couldn't run, you trained.
Yeah.
So that was their mentality. Probably looking back now, it was a silly thing to do, but I think it gave all the young blokes in particular, myself, Ricky, Lazo, Brad, Clyde, these type of blokes, look, seeing your senior leaders out there just busting their ass and training when they probably shouldn't have been, we needed to be at that level.
Is that what instilled that strong culture there for you? Like that you just mentioned then, Lazo, Sticky, yourself, like when they all leave, the older guys then, does that mean who was the first person to step up and go, well, this is our team now? Or did you just do it all collective together because you've been a product of what you've seen before?
Yeah, no, I think so I was never really comfortable in a leadership role early. Not that I was in any leadership role, but I used to like having a good time as much as anyone. So, so you know, I'd go and have a beer. So I wasn't a leader, but on the field, because I could play, I was able to sort of try and get people to follow me on the field. Yeah. But off the field, I just like to have a good time. You know, I'd like to go and have a beer and, you know, I'd get myself in trouble, obviously, and, you know, get fined and, you know, turning up late.
I should have
for training
and
But it wasn't until probably 92 that I think I was 21, 22, something like that. And out of nowhere, Gus said, mate, I want you to be captain of the Origin team. And I'm like, me? And he goes, yeah, you. I said, mate, I don't know whether I'm captain. I said, what do I do? And he said, just be you. So I had no idea how to be a leader off the field, but I knew I could be a leader on the field. And then once you start seeing yourself as a bit of a leader, a bit of a role model, then you know that you've got to be able to start doing things a little bit differently away from the field. And that's not to say I still never had a beer or had a good time, but it was about getting that balance right. And then I was lucky enough that, you know, they were sort of helpful in putting structures around myself in terms of what a leader looks like. Yeah. The actions of a leader, and you still make mistakes along the way, but you grow from that and you get better every game, every round, every week, every year. Yeah. And that's how I sort of fell into being a leader. I didn't want to be a leader, didn't know I could be a leader. And it's not until you sort of get that responsibility that you go, oh, hang on, I enjoy this, and that's what I want to do.
So who was captain before? It was Brad Clyde. Are you the same age as Brad Clyde?
So Clyde and I'm October, and I think Clyde is either a January, February baby. So there's only a couple of months between us, but I'm 69, he's 70.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, we came through together.
Yep.
So Mal, Dean Lance was the captain when I first arrived, and then Mal was the captain, and Mal was there until 94. This is with the Raiders. But in 1992, so I hadn't captained at any level in senior grades. Yeah. So, and Gus made me the captain of the Origin team. So you can imagine like how big a thrill that would have been, but also daunting going, why me?
Who was the players that were in that Origin side? Like just for us, when you were named captain? Was there who was the big names in that side?
So I was lucky. So you had a couple of blokes that you'd know well that your father would have played with, Benny, Elias.
You're captain of all those boys.
And Ciro.
Yeah, right.
Chief Harrigan, Ian Roberts, Lazo, Clyde.
And they would have all been captains at their own clubs too, right?
Yeah, a lot of them were leaders in their own right. Ricky was the halfback. Paul McGregor, Freddie.
Freddie, yeah.
Timmy Brasher, Roddy Wishart, E.T.
Wow.
We had a really good team, good people. Yeah. Good people. It's when you got a footy team that's connected and get on so well, geez, I reckon that's half the battle. If you can connect as a group and you're there for one another and play for one another, I think that's nearly. I reckon that's nearly better than having a good game plan at times. You know, sometimes you walk off the field and you go, it was just a commitment of each other that got the job done. Like you don't sort of walk off too many times and go, yeah, the game plan got us home today. Sometimes it's all about just your determination and your want and desire to win.
How do you instill that, Loz? Obviously, I've had you as a coach and I know how passionate you are and it's in your nature. We spoke to Boyd Cordner earlier and it's just in his character, you know. These champions have that. But how do you, from all your experience, what's the recipe for this? Like, how do you create that love within a team in a short period of time?
Well, that's always the challenge, isn't it? You've got to get everyone to buy in. But I think you just got to be yourself and explain to the players, listen, we're all here, we all want to win. And the easiest way to do that is if you're going to look after each other. If you look after each other and it means the same to you as it does to me, and we can connect through our love of the teammate and the love of the jersey we're playing for, under pressure that'll help. So I reckon that it's about spending those times, in particular when you get a group for a short space. It's not so much about the tactics and about the game plan. Yes, you still got to have your structure, but it's about getting that commitment to each other that you're going to fight till the death, you're going to compete as hard as you can, and you're going to be there when you're called upon and when you're needed.
When you talk about competitors, Loz, Ricky Stuart, obviously you had
One of the
Mal, Brad Clyde. Can you sort of give us some insight on to why them players were so good and what they done for you? Obviously learning and obviously being around them. Like, what's that sort of confidence like? If there was a salary cap back in the day, the Raiders would have been way over. Yeah. So it's sort of like you first touched on Ricky then, and it gave you a spark. Yeah. Like competitor, what was it?
I'll tell you this. Like in that side and that era, when you looked around the dressing shed, you'd go, if he's on today, if he's ready to go, we're going to be hard to beat.
Yeah.
Like that was the feeling you had. And you know what it's like. Some days you're not at your best, but you could just find a way to sort of win. And then other days you'd have a poor performance. But you knew most big games that you were going to be hard to beat. So that always gave you confidence straight away. Ricky was so good for my game because he was a playmaker that knew how to conduct a game plan, but also freed me up to not have to worry about thinking about too much. So Ricky was one of the first halfbacks to have a big, long spiral pass, and he could do it right to left, left to right, and he could kick the ball 60 metres down the field. So I could, because my running game was my strength, I could stand a lot wider than I could with any other halfback.
Yeah.
And I would always then be on the edge of a defensive system. So instead of sort of being tight, I could get myself straight onto the third defender in.
Yeah.
And then I could still have a back rower like Bradley on my outside. I could still have a fullback sweeping around. I could still have a centre, still have a winger. And I could really put, the forwards, if they got fatigued, under a bit of pressure. But I could only play my style because of our forwards going through the middle, and they dragged defenders in when you had Lazarus and Clyde, Todd, Coyne, all these blokes just going through the middle, and then teams would be worried about the half maybe going through again, or they'd have to compress their defence, and then if it went to me, I'd just have a lot of space, and Ricky allowed me to do that just through his passing game. But competitive-wise, there wasn't a more or a better competitor. Cheeky, great sledger.
One of the best.
He's one of the best. One of the best I've heard.
There wouldn't be many repercussions for sledges back then either, was there? You say one thing now, you got 12 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Some of them would have been 2 years
he didn't bar anyone.
No.
Everyone was open to it. And it's funny. Oh, you two played together, so you'd know this. Oh, well, I don't know whether you would have done it, but Ricky and I, at times, we'd fight over the ball.
Yeah.
And you'd be blowing up if he got the ball.
Yeah.
But invariably, you'd be blowing up, but then you'd have to go and pat him on the back because they'd take the right option and they'd score.
Yeah.
But when they called it and they got it, you'd be filthy. Going, mate, what are you giving it to him for? And then you'd see him score and you go, well done, boys.
Yeah.
We're here. Good decision. So it's funny how halves work. We had a great relationship, but at times on the field, because we were both competitive, we both wanted the ball, and we were both into Steve Walters about giving it to us. So I felt sorry for the hooker box.
Yeah,
because he was like, who do I give it to here?
Me and Toddy speak about that a lot, especially on the 6 and 7s, like that dynamics. The chemistry has to be so important with halves, and you see the teams that are, like you said, the power balance is out. It doesn't work, does it?
Well, that's a fair point, mate. The power balance,
and the ego balance too, isn't it?
Yeah, and I knew at times I had to take the back seat, even though I thought the option was mine or I wanted the ball, I knew that the best decision was to go with Ricky because that's what the coach wanted and that's what our team needed, and he invariably came up with the right decision. So you have to. And I wasn't a halfback, so that's not my job to sort of control the ruck. My job is to run strong with the football and make sure that if I needed to play out wide, then I had the right people out there to do it with.
So were you an organiser, Loz? Like, as you got more of a senior 5'8", did you sort of organise sets or?
As I got older,
yeah,
because I understood the game a bit more, and I think there's probably two reasons. One, you understand the game a bit more, but you lose a little bit of speed. So if you're losing a bit of speed, trying to stay not relevant, but stay having an impact, you probably learn to do something else or add to what you've already got. So then I thought I was never a great ball player. That wasn't my strength at all.
Yeah, right.
I could pass, but in terms of being a ball player, that wasn't my strength at all. But I learnt to do it as I got older because I understood more about how to stop defences and how to put people into space, which, you learn with a bit of experience and you learn as you get a bit older because you have to, because you slow down a bit.
Did you play with Alfie for Australia, Joey, these halves as well?
Yep.
What was out of those three, obviously Sticky was probably your favourite playing week to week, but can you give us a bit of insight on Alfie and Joey as well?
Yeah. They're all wonderful players. Alfie, as a half, was so dangerous. You ask all the forwards, they hated playing against Alf because he would just continually pick on you, like pick on a big forward. Just make you work. And he'd always have options inside and out. And then at times you think, oh, well, he's going to pass again on the inside, and he'd throw a dummy and duck under and go. So his short game was as good as what you've seen, both kicking and passing. And I think that's one of the reasons why I struggled with Alf when we played for Australia together. The width of the pass, yeah. So I was more sort of stand wide, whereas Alf and Kevy, they were played more short passes and interchange with each other. So it was all short, or run, turn, Kevy back on the inside. That was their sort of style.
Yeah.
But Alf and we never really gelled at the Australian level because I wasn't used to him and he wasn't used to me as a 5'8", but loved playing with him and playing against him at Origin level. He was just a constant threat, always taking the ball to the line and was courageous. Then you got Joey, and Joey just had everything, and then to watch him develop and grow into the player he became was one of the great things about seeing him was he always had the skill, always had the knowledge, but then was able just to nail it on so many occasions.
What was that with Joey? Was it repetition, or was it just that he just had the ability to get better and better, like all players do? You get better within time, but he sort of come through that, but then held on to it. And then now you look at players today; halves are still modelling off the Joey model.
I think he obviously worked hard on his game, but he just knew how to sum up a situation so well. So he knew, because he had all the tricks in the bag, so he had it all there. And sometimes halfbacks have all the ability, but they don't know what to play at what certain stages of the game requires. So when they have to kick long, they don't kick long, or when they have to pass short, they don't pass short. They try and put the winger away in a 20-metre pass, where it's not the right option. He just summed it up really quickly and knew what play needed to be done at that particular moment in time. That's to me what stood out. He just nailed what was required.
When you played with a group of superstars like blokes like Mullins and stuff, like when the chips were down, who's the man that stood up in that group? Because obviously there was a big group here. Like When do you? Where's the balance come from?
You mentioned Mullows. Mullows, I always knew if Mullows caught the ball on the full the first time the opposition kicked it, I just knew we were on. I knew he was in for a special day.
Yeah.
And you know, like, they kick the ball, you got to trudge back. I'll tell you this: if he caught the first ball on the full, that day you'd be thinking, I'm not going to worry about getting behind the ball here. I'm going to worry about support play.
Yeah, right.
Just straight through.
Because, mate, he would just, if he was in a mood, he could tear anyone apart. And you'd be just thinking, yeah, he's ready to go today. I'm just going to support here because he's going to. That was the mentality that I had. And then if he did get tackled, then you'd obviously move back as quickly as you could. But he was just, he had a couple of years there where he was just red hot. Red hot.
When you talk about, obviously, we had a bit of a giggle about, like, back in the day, and it's talking about, like, the game used to have a beer. Everyone loves a beer. Me and Pierce, obviously, probably were their worst enemy. But why has it changed so much? Is it just because where the game's going to more superior, not more superior athletes, but there's just no room for it?
Yeah, I think, obviously, the professionalism of the game, a lot more money in the game now, and it's your career. You know, and with the amount of money that they earn comes a lot more responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think knowing now if you look after yourself and you look after your body, then you can play on, like when we were sort of playing early 30s, you were retiring.
Yeah. Okay.
Now you can play well into your 30s if you look after yourself. And I think that's one thing that players have realised now that, hey, listen, if you look after yourself a lot more, then your longevity in the game is going to be there, and you've got the ability to set yourself up for life, and the opportunities that come from that will obviously grow over your footy career. And, yeah, I think everyone's more aware of the damage that it can do to you if you don't look after yourself properly.
Yeah.
The best comp laws, obviously, it was 89, 90, 90. 91, you got beat by Penrith. Yeah. So you had 3 comps all up. You won. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we won 89, 90, 94.
94.
Got beaten in 87 and we got beaten in 91. We had no right to be in the 91 grand final. Yeah. We struggled our way to get there. We had a lot of injuries. I remember Lazo, he had a bad sternum injury. Gary Belcher had a bad knee. Ricky had a groin. I had the hemi. We were busted. Yeah. We were busted. And that's taking nothing away from Penrith because they probably still would have beaten us on the day. But that was a great year for us because we had no right to make that grand final.
So you're sort of hobbling in.
We hobbled. Yeah.
Right. So who'd you beat in the semi leading?
So I think we beat North Sydney.
North Sydney.
Yeah. Right. But Penrith, we beat them the previous year. And they were ready to rock and roll. They came out and Royce's last game and Freddie and Greg Alexander and Mark Guy and Johnny Cartwright and these guys, they were primed for a big performance and they got us and they deserved to win that. But from our point of view, it was a good season. Even though we lost and you don't want to lose a grand final, the fact that we made it, I thought was significant.
Looking on your career, Loz, who was your best player you played with? And you've obviously played with heaps, and it's hard to single them out. Or even if what's Mal like? Like everyone thinks about Raiders, it's Mal Meninga. Yeah. Obviously yourself, Stuart. When I was a kid, that's all I was in the backyard. Was either you or Ricky Stuart. It
was funny with Mal because everyone had so much respect for him, and when he spoke.
Yeah,
you just shut up. You didn't say.
He's still got that, hasn't he? He's the king.
Yeah. And then you just go right here, and then, you'd be out somewhere, and you have a good time, and you used to laugh or whatever, and then you knew when he was being serious. So you knew, when he spoke, and the eyes were staring at you. You're going. I think he means this. He does mean this.
Like
So at times someone can say, "Mate, you got to ease up," or they can go, "Hey, ease up." You go, "All right, I know the difference."
Yeah.
So he had the respect, so he could do and demand anything from you. And as a young guy, because you idolised him, because he's standing in the game, you just did whatever he asked you to do. Yeah. And if he told you to pull your head in, you pulled your head in.
It's an interesting one. I agreed to go to Manly in 2008. And then I got back from Manly, visiting Manly, and Mal rang me the next morning. The club must have got him to call me. Yeah. Met him at a cafe. I reneged that afternoon. I rang Desi and said, "Oh, mate, I'm not coming." Because Mal goes, like, obviously explained the importance of the Raiders and stuff. Yeah. And obviously, kid coming from Goulburn. But it was just him sitting over me having breakfast. I was just sitting there. Had no option, yeah. It was like they were bringing the big guns.
Sorry, mate.
Nah, sorry, mate.
Yeah. Get up and walk.
I changed straight away.
Good play from the club.
Yeah, massive play.
Send the big dog in.
Yeah.
Nah, but he was such an inspirational leader. The thing I loved about Mal too, like in a big game, tight game, if something needed to be done, he'd do it. So I don't know. So if we were behind, got ourselves back into a contest, score a try, the opposition kick off, well, he'd go back and carry it from the kick-off.
Yeah, right.
Like little things like that, you're going, oh, you didn't have to do it. Front rowers want to do it, usually do it. And he'd go, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to show you the way.
Yeah.
So just things like that. When a moment was required to lead, he led. Yeah. And I think that's a leader right there, knowing the moment when to go, hey, I'm not going to ask you to do it. I'm not going to ask you to do it. It's my turn. This is what leadership's about. I lead the way.
Very similar to what Boydie said, isn't it? About his traits as a leader. He said, like, he does speak when he needs to, but his actions led first, and he's non-negotiables of carries and stuff like that. So it's very true.
And I think that's a strength too. You don't always have to be a great communicator because a leader is someone that people will follow.
Yeah.
So you're not going to follow someone that just keeps talking, even though they might know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Like a leader is someone that I want to go into battle with him, because he's going to look after me as well. He'll look after himself. He'll look after me as well. And you mentioned Boydo, that was his style.
Yeah.
And they're very effective styles as well.
What was your drive like? You just talked about Mal being that guy. Everyone I speak to, you were that guy. In big games, big moments, watching you as a kid, coming from junior, was there any sort of stuff that was your real big driving point? And now even going into Origin coaching that we'll speak about in a bit, but you're obviously an out-and-out champion and a motivated person. Those big moments, was there something that drew you into the zone?
Well, that's the way I tried to lead. I was like, well, if something needs to be done, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to ask anyone to do it. I'm going to do it. And if I fail, I fail. But I'll be failing having a crack. Mm-hmm. So that was my sort of leadership style.
And were you always like that?
Well, I think I was because I was competitive.
Yeah.
So I think being competitive helps. But I also knew that, talk is cheap at times, and you don't like people saying, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and they don't. So you're better off not saying it but doing it. Mm-hmm. So that was something that I always had and thought that that's my strength. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to ask anyone to do something before I have a chance of doing it. And if I'm a leader, I've got to do it. My time has come. I'm putting my hand up first, and hopefully that inspires, or hopefully that'll get people to follow. And that's always been my sort of mantra, is that I'll do it. And if I do it, come with me.
You went through the Super League war. What was that like?
Oh, it was interesting times. I don't think anyone realised the amount of damage that it was going to do to the game. But obviously it was about paid television. I can remember being in Townsville and we got called to a meeting at the casino in Townsville. And they spoke about this vision for the game, and then they started talking about the money that they were going to offer everyone. And it was just life-changing for us. You know, you're going from, you know what, I don't even know what we're getting. We're probably on, it's a lot of money too. We're on probably $130,000 a year.
Yeah.
So, in those days, just going back, 30 years ago, you went from earning that to anywhere, blokes were earning anywhere from 600 to $1 million.
Oh, wow.
In that 80s, 90s.
So, yeah.
In one flick of a club, a game.
Yep. And then, you know, they'd give you sort of a check straight up when you sign for a loyalty bonus. And we were playing the Cowboys the next day. And we were staying at the, you know, the old sugar shaker they used to call it.
In the middle of the town,
yeah, we were staying there. So we all go back, and I was the first one to go in and sign. And you get a loyalty check, and we came back, and I was looking around, but there was no one there because they were all at the casino. So then I'm waiting, and then, you know, player rocks in and high-fiving and asking them, you know, what'd you get, you know? And then they'd put all their, checks down on the ground. We had it in a briefcase. And I've said this story before. I reckon, I don't know how many of us had signed, but there would have been, I don't know, anywhere from, say, $500,000 to $1 million in checks just sitting in this briefcase from that night. Wow. So we're playing the next day. And it was like, boys,
you had to concentrate.
Oh, well, we didn't. We just went and ordered the
Straight
beers.
to mad cow.
we didn't go out. We ordered the beers. And then we just sat around and we just drinking and telling stories and asking questions about how good. And then we played the next day.
Win?
Yeah, we won. Well, we were threatened if we didn't win, we weren't allowed out.
Yeah, right.
So that was obviously a good incentive as well.
That was a challenge in Townsville, wasn't it?
When that changes, the mindset changes a player. Like, obviously, you talk about the players now in the game, they earn the money, so it comes with responsibility. Did the responsibility change more then for you as players because you went from 120 to earning 600?
Yeah.
Or was
it should have, but it didn't.
Yeah.
Should have, but it didn't.
Yeah.
Well, in terms of, like, when you start getting paid really good money, you've got to look after yourself.
Yeah.
So we still had that semi-professional attitude. And it wasn't until, I reckon, probably my last year, 2000. I might have been a bit earlier than that, but attitudes did change. And the way you went about preparing changed because the expectation was higher. But I think from 95 to 97, 98, because it was an ongoing battle of players and court battles and all that type of stuff, it didn't really settle down until probably 99, 2000 when it got back together and, rightio, this is the path that rugby league's going down now. You've got to start being more professional. You look after yourself a lot more money involved in the game. So I think sort of my last years was the time that it sort of started, the penny started to drop with a lot of people that, it's getting more professional now than it's ever been.
The new influx of players like Lockyer and that, what was that like? As from like, obviously you come through the generation and you start seeing these guys come through.
Yeah.
What was it like watching them, and what was the sense like for where the game was going? Yeah,
well, you see all those young blokes coming through and they remind you of where you were at the start of your career. And as you get older, you slow down, you know, and sometimes the hunger is not there like you used to have. I reckon when I first played, like every game, morning of the game, I was that happy, excited. And I reckon as I got towards the end of my career, that never happened all the time. And actually that was the catalyst for me wanting to retire. I remember waking up one morning and it was cold in Canberra. I'm like, oh, geez, I don't really feel like playing today. And I'd never had that before in my life.
Yeah.
You know, it was always, so once you start thinking like that, you know, the time's coming to an end. And you try and bluff your way through it and try and think that you're committed. But then I knew that, you know, one, I was losing my passion. Two, because I had knee injuries, I wasn't playing to the ability I knew I could play to. And then you see all these young up-and-coming players play and they'd play against you and, you know, they'd show you up at times and that'd frustrate you. So a combination of everything, and then you just go, mate, no, I'm past this now because I just can't do it.
Did you always see yourself as a coach? Like obviously at the back end of your career, you were a leader, captain Australia too, didn't you?
Yeah.
Captain every level. Did you always see yourself as a coach?
No, mate. I could never be an NRL coach. The amount of hours that you have to put into it to be successful, and it doesn't guarantee you success either.
Guarantees depression.
Yeah.
Well, they never look happy, the poor guys.
No, they're always under pressure. And, it's like you lose three games in a row and everyone's coming for you. So with the amount of scrutiny that they're under, you'd like to think that they've got good support networks around them and clubs provide that for them. But it's a hard job. And anyone that's been in and around football clubs now know exactly how much time is required. And they all prepare very well, but unfortunately, you can only have the one winner. And if you're not winning comps, everyone's asking why you haven't won the comp. Yeah. But I could never see myself being a club coach. Representative football is different. Representative football, it's about bringing a group of people together for a common cause, getting them really connected, that they want to play well for each other, prepare them well, and get them to go out there and compete as hard as they can. And you're working with the best players, so they come in, they're motivated, they want to play for whatever, whether it's country, whether it's Australia, whether it's New South Wales or whatever it is. They come in with great attitudes and they want to compete, and that's all you want from a footy player. And you can have a good time while you're in camp, have some wonderful memories, meet different people from different clubs, and you become friends. And some of the guys that I played with from other clubs are still mates today. And that's the great thing about rugby league.
Was there you're obviously back in the New South Wales job now, been out for a few years. Did you lose passion for coaching for a bit, and then now you've found a spark again, or did the opportunity just present itself, or is there a burning desire there?
Yeah, no, it was interesting. I think it's like anything. I think, you two boys, if I said to you, come on the staff of the New South Wales team, you'd be there. You go, yep, no worries. Yeah. And I think while I never had that, I shouldn't say passion, while I didn't have the desire to get back involved, once an opportunity came around again, you were never going to say no. And Freddie came to me in 2000 and must have been 23 or 4. Anyhow, he was going through his contract negotiations, and I met up with him for a coffee, and he said, "Mate, I want you to come and be a part of my staff." And I went, "Oh, right. Have a think about it." And then I thought about it. I said, "Mate, I'd love to. I want to be involved." Yep. No, I'll come and be involved with you. And then he rang me, I don't know, about a month later, and he said, "No, I've pulled the pin." He said, "Haven't come to an arrangement, so I'm out." And I went, "Oh, right, no worries." And then I was like, "Oh, well, that was always going to be my chance to get back in and around."
Yes.
But my time's sort of over. And then Madge got the gig. And then Madge did a great job, fantastic job with New South Wales, the way they played last year. And then Madge got me in to speak to the group. So I went in and spoke to the group, and you know what it's like when you get back around the footy players, you start to go, this is a great environment, it's what we do and what we're growing up with, and you miss it. And then sort of out of the blue, an opportunity came around to be back involved. I think, not many people knew what Madge was going to do. It was quite a shock when he announced that he was going to the Broncos, and he always wanted to be a career coach, obviously. And then there was an opening at New South Wales, so I was lucky enough to get that position. And sort of since I've got that, I've sort of gone head first into it, and sort of know what to expect. But you know that the work you got to do between now and that first game. Yep. So a lot of the planning's been done. Watching a lot of footy, but you can never get too sort of far ahead of yourself, because you know that there's always something that happens between now and Origin. And Zach Lomax's foot injury, Cam Murray going down in the off season. Injuries can happen. So you've just got to wait and see now. All the prep's done, and we'll just sit back and wait till round 11's over, and then pick a side from there, and whoever we pick will do a good job.
Do you change anything? If anything, what would you change? Like from the first time around to now, like obviously you learn so much in between. Obviously, watching your passions back there, you're always going to have that passion. Do you do anything different, or you just kept the same? Like, because like you said, you galvanise a group to come together.
Yeah.
So, is there anything you've had to change, or you just sort of went with the same philosophy?
Well, I think you learn as you go, Toddy. I think for me, just being able to listen and learn, and being able to think about things that you may have done differently last time, things that you got wrong, you think about, and you're always analysing every decision, you know. You always analyse the ones when it doesn't go well for you. But you know when you're making those decisions, you always make it in the best interest of the team. So that's one thing that you've got to be careful of, not sort of doubting yourself and not doubting some of the things that you did, because even though we didn't get the results we were after, we did some really good things. You know, we did some positive things and great things, but unfortunately, you're judged on results. You know, in Origins, as you blokes know, like moments swing momentums of games, and there's not much usually between the two sides. And I think we lost 4 games there. Well, we did. We lost 4 games by a combined total of 7 points. You know, that's the difference between winning and losing. Those moments in a game where you got to nail them. If you don't nail them, you miss your chance. The opposition are good. They go down and take theirs, and there's the game.
Not being in clubland, and then obviously if your staff, how important is your staff? Because obviously they come from week to week clubland footy. Like, how much do you have to rely on them? Because not that you have to be a part of clubland to be a successful coach in Origin. Obviously, Billy Slater's been doing it, but there's obviously different things that go on that you might not see week in, week out. Is it important to make sure that they've got a big job to do? Yeah,
very much so. You know, I empower my assistants to make sure that they're a part of it and they're responsible for certain aspects of our game. So there's no point having them if you're not going to give them any responsibility. Yeah, and they're in and around that environment every day. So they'll be good for me, but also I'll be able to sort of talk to them about what I'm looking for. So I'll be able to talk to them about what I think we need to do in Origin when it comes to attack, and my theories and philosophies on how we want to defend. And then we'll speak about how we marry all that up with their thoughts and come up with a system that we're both happy with, and more importantly, the players are happy with. So, you know, part of that will be speaking to key players. Even though you don't know who's going to be in there, you'll have guys that you'll speak to when they come into camp, get their input and influence into plays they like to play, how they like to set up for different things in the game. You'll talk about yardage sets, you'll talk about good ball sets, so they feel comfortable that under pressure they can deliver those moments out there in the game.
What's the biggest difference you see in the game? Obviously, you've coached Origin, you've been out of it, you're still in the media and watching a lot of footy. Yeah. You speak to Nathan and Mitch Moses, these type of guys. It's been unreal listening to them and talking about how much the game's changed with the 6 agains and how much more ad-lib, eyes up you have to play now. We haven't experienced it because we've been out of it for a while, but what do you see now when you come back around them or talk to them? What's the difference now? Yeah,
it's interesting because we went through a period there where it was all structured. And there was players that couldn't play outside of structure and they missed opportunities. So it's now starting to get back to the game so fast that you've got to take your opportunities. So you've got to go where the space is, or you've got to play to where the tired players are. Instead of the general rule was get to a field position and then put on your plays from there.
So it's more just reactive off, get a 6 again, let's go straight away.
Yeah, I think that's more where the game's heading now because of the fatigue factor. So, because you can waste plays.
Yep.
There's no point when you've got a team on the rack going, well, we need to take one more to get us here to put on this. You need to be able to fast, flat, go at the advantage line and people pushing into space.
So does that change a lot of your training drills now to what you did when you were coaching before?
Yeah.
Have you noticed a big difference with that?
Yeah, it will. But I still think you have to have the balance because, the opposition are doing some really good things and moving forward in the line and slow play the ball. You've got to have to learn, well, how do we combat this? We're not going anywhere in this set, but we've got to get a kick away at some stage. How off the back of that can we get our best kick away? Yep. So that might come back to a little bit of structure. If they're defending really well down the other end of the field, in the attacking zone, well, how are we going to get a good kick away? Do we go to the wingers? How do we get to a fullback? Or how do we get a fast play the ball so we can earn the right to maybe put on a shape or whatever it may be? So you still got to have that balance between structure, but you've got to play a bit more to space and you've got to play to a bit more fatigue.
What was the, talking about from the early days you started to now, what's the best style of footy you've liked watching? Is there a favourite?
Biased. Yeah, I'm pretty biased. I thought when I first came into grade, it was tough. Like there was, you'd pass the ball, you just get whacked.
Yeah.
You just got hammered. And
so the fear was a lot more.
If you're on the ground and you had a hand there, someone would stand on it and elbow you or whatever it was, Yeah. But then they started to clean the game up, and the 90s was great, and it probably suited us because we were known as a footy side that liked to attack from anywhere, and we used to play sideline to sideline footy.
Yeah.
So that era in the 90s was profile-wise it was high, and the style of footy was amazing because they just came out of the 80s where it was low-scoring, really defensive-based type of football. So they opened the game up. Yeah, they changed the rules. They they extended. I think it went from 5 to 8 meters, and it was a good brand of footy to play in. There wasn't a lot of stoppages. The ball was in play, and fatigue sort of came into it, and it was a really good time to play. Really good time to play.
When you talk about those early days, it's always good for modern players asking like that fear. Like as a half, like you said, you knew you could get your head caved in by a block of roach or it changes the whole dynamics of a half. If you've got a bit of softness in you, you wouldn't have survived. Is that right?
Well,
or at least pulling out of games more compared to what it would be now.
Well, I think it's amazing. Anyone that played in that era and I got the back end of it, and I was sort of out wide, so I was okay. But you knew you'd still going to cop it when they got their hands on you. Like you just line up, you'd line up, and you'd have blokes saying, "I'm going to give it to you today." And you go, "What?" Yeah, I'm going to bash you. As a 17, 18-year-old kid, you're going, "Oh, righto."
Yeah.
And they would, yeah. So it wasn't it was a threat, but they delivered on it. And I was like, "How does this work?" Yeah. They're just going to give it to you and let you know about it. Whereas I couldn't imagine them lining up today and doing it. Like, no one would do it. Yeah, you'd have a laugh if someone said it. But it was. That's how funny it was in the 80s, late 80s. But I can only imagine what it was like earlier than that. And then once the sort of 90s sort of came and they opened the game up, it wasn't as bad as what it was when I first started.
There's always a question when it's Origin time, the halves, and we talk about the power balance and the yin and yang of halves. Obviously, you've got some luxury of picking players. Obviously, Jerome and Nathan have played together. Mitchell is the incumbent. With that power balance, if you went with Mitchell and Nathan, do you let them decide who becomes the power, or will you as a coach go, nah, you're going to be the 7, you're going to be the 6, or do you let them work that out together if it went that way?
Yeah. I think whoever the halves are, I think you got to basically sit with them both and see what they think is the best option. I'm a big believer, though, this is only me personally, is that the 7, he's the he's the guy.
Yeah.
He runs the team. Yeah. And I think ideally that's what I'd do.
Yeah.
You know, talk to the 7 and go, mate, this is your team. How are we going to run it? What are we going to do? But combination-wise, you'd certainly get an input if it was a Nathan Mitch.
Yeah.
Because one's both are halfbacks and both are very dominant. You got a Jerome there who's got such a wonderful record with Nathan, so you just let them play how they normally play. You got guys like Matty Burton if he came into the system, or Cody.
Yeah.
It'd be sort of similar because Cody likes to get the ball in his hands when he can. Matty Burton's a strong sort of running style of 5'8", so he'd probably sort of let the halfback sort of take control and be a runner rather than an organising style of 5'8". So I think it's just a balance of depending on who you got and just mix and match. But whoever you got, make sure that they understand their role from day one.
As the coach, Lods, do you have these conversations with these guys now? Because as you said, you don't know what you're going to have when it's time to be picked. So do you have to have conversations with blokes like obviously Matt Burton, Cody Walker, because they're not spoken about at the moment because the 3 people who are getting spoken about is Nathan, Mitchell and Jerome.
Yeah.
But do you have to make that phone call to go, hey, boys, if these guys go down, or do you just let them play their footy?
Nah, I let them play.
Yeah.
I think that's the easiest. But one thing I will do, I think as we get closer to the game, you will. I'll start to make those phone calls and have a quick chat, And that's not guaranteeing anyone.
Yeah.
But it's about getting people up to speed with, hey, this might be happening. And if it does, this is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
This is how we're going to sort of play and this is what we're going to do. So there's no doubt that in the lead up to Origin, I will sort of make a couple of calls. And again, it won't be guaranteeing them a spot, but just sort of talking about, hey, if this happens, this is the style we're thinking of playing.
Are you big on form? Picking on form, Loz?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, isn't it? Like,
there's always the question marks about how teams are picked, and obviously some people say they stick with what they've got. End of the day, it's your team.
I think you take everything into consideration. I don't think you just go the form player.
Yeah. Experience.
But I think I think you take into account people who've been there before, what they've done in that jersey before.
Yeah.
How they're actually playing this year. Yeah. Like if you're completely out of form, well, that's an issue. But if you're just not near where you were the previous year, what you did then the next year, you probably tend to favour those blokes. If you're coming off a winning series, and they've performed really well. But I think you certainly need some confidence going into Origin. So you wouldn't want to be playing poorly. You want to make sure that you're playing some really good football and give yourself that confidence that, hey, I'm ready for this again.
Yeah.
I think if you're going in with a bit of doubt and you're not playing well at Clubland and you've been not playing well for a few weeks, I think you'd have to really consider that. But if you're going okay and you've been there before, it wouldn't worry me to pick someone that's excelled in the Blues jersey, and in particular if they're coming off that great victory last year.
You don't have to say names, but is there anyone kicking the door down? Like there's obviously players, there's people that are getting spoken about through media, and that doesn't mean anything at the end of the day, but is there some players kicking the door down for you?
Yeah, I think there is, I think that's one thing I'm really excited about is that, I've learnt you don't pick a team, but what you need to be able to have is a depth chart of if people are injured, what does it look like in terms of a group, a solid group? Look at what's our fullbacks look like, what's our outside backs look like, what's our halves look like, and when you write them all down, people that can play in those positions, you get quite excited because there's a lot of depth.
Yeah.
So I just sort of watch those players, and there's a couple of players that I might not have thought were going to be in the team when I first got it. You know, when you first get it and you go, well, what does the team sort of look like? What was last year's team? But there's a couple of players there that just on performances alone this year, you're sitting there going, well, these guys are playing good football. I need to sort of look at them a little bit more closely and see what their habits are like, and under pressure how they're playing. And you know, I'll dig deeper into that now that we're getting closer to Origin. But yeah, there's a couple there that are sort of getting close to sort of being in the really hard conversation. You know, that one where, geez, this bloke's a chance of being picked here.
Watching so the last few years when you haven't been involved, sitting on the couch having a beer, watching NRL games on the couch, having a beer, just sort of relaxing. How much different is it now for you? Like watching footy, do you watch every game? Do you go back and watch the past few Origins? Yeah. Or do you just focus on the game now and what you've got in front of you?
Oh, a bit of everything, Toddy. I watched last year's Origins, obviously. I watched last year's training sessions at Origins.
Yeah, right.
Back on video, Loz.
Back on video.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that you do watch it through a different lens now, compared to what I have been watching it. But I'm more sort of watching individuals rather than styles, if you know what I mean. And I watch a lot of video during the week.
Yeah, okay.
So it's hard actually watching it on the television. So you either got to be at the game or I watch the video during the week, and you watch from the high angle. Is always a good one to watch from, because you can actually see people's movements a lot better and you get a clearer picture of what they're doing. You know, like just even in, you know, a kick chase line, you know, how much speed do they get down the field with? You know, when the ball is getting moved to the halfback and the halfback has no inside support, whether the tight or the edge front rower goes really hard to put pressure on the half, or how smart are they to not go hard if he's got that support play? Because if he goes too hard, the half just tips on the inside and he's through a gap, you know. So you get a better understanding when you have a look up high. So I tend to watch a lot of the footy on either at the ground or on that high shot on video, because the television shot, while it's good, I can't get what I'm after.
Yeah,
as a coach. But yeah, it's interesting how I'm watching footy. I'm watching individuals, and I'm watching movements, and I'm watching what they do under pressure. You know, you're watching, you know, if a line break's happened against their side, how quickly they get back and try and recover and try and scramble in the defensive line. Little things like that you would never sort of look at if you're at home or with your mates watching a game.
So you value that stuff in your selections and to build trust more than the perfect pass, or us spectators will watch and go, oh, how good's he going? Your philosophies are more around that effort.
I think at that level, with the fatigue that comes into play, you've got to have people you trust. And if you've got guys that have nailed the effort part of their game, that'll take you a long way alone in an Origin game. But if you've got that and you add the skill to it, well, you're going to be one hell of a player. But you can't not have effort. And at that level, that's where you get exposed. You know, if the ball goes past you and you haven't got that urgency to stay in the line and keep moving, and you stop for 1 second, eventually someone will turn that ball back on the inside and you'll get found out. You'll see it coming, and then after stopping, you'll start and you'll just miss the assignment. So you've got to make sure that that's a good habit in your game. And if the effort areas aren't right, I don't know whether you can trust those people on the bigger stage.
That's a key message we talk about when we do our podcast weekly, and trying to give insight to fans, parents and young kids. That's a massive message, isn't it? That your job's not done when you're just doing a hit up or passing the ball. You've got to continue to move. You've got to be in every play.
Yep.
To be an Origin player, for our younger listeners and viewers, like, you've got to actually work your backside off,
Yeah, you do. You can't just carry the ball and then do nothing else in that set.
Yeah.
You just can't. In today's game, you can't. When they kick the ball, you've got to be down there in a line. You've got to present a line where there's no other option for them other than just to carry the ball straight into you. When the ball goes past you in defence, like, you can't afford to clock off. You can't afford to have a moment where you rest. And the game is so fast now. And everyone talks about fatigue. And if you get fatigued and you're one of those players that drop off very quickly, people know where to attack. There's no secrets with any of this. But it's what you value as a player or a coach, which is so important, because if you've got the right chemistry and you've got the values that the coach has got, well, you'll deliver on what he wants you to do. So that's what's important, that you pick the people that can play and deliver on what you see as important. So I see those efforts just as important as someone carrying the ball.
Did you model your game on that, Loz, when you're coming through? Is that how your toughness?
Just love to compete.
Compete, yeah.
Just
compete
wanted
on every
to compete.
play.
Yep. I just wanted to be the person that people just, I like playing with him. And when I played rep footy, that's all I wanted people to say about me. Geez, I love playing with him.
Yeah. How do you coach that, Loz, for like parents out there, other coaches? I know, like, during grassroots level, coaches are volunteers, so they have to do it just to, yes, they love the game, but if they don't understand and they don't have that in themselves to the want to win, and obviously we've succeeded at that level because we had that want to win.
Yep.
How do you tell a volunteer coach or a young kid that you've got to have a want to win? How do you instill that in someone?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's probably something as they get a little bit older.
Yeah.
That you can start to help them maybe a little bit with. But at the start, everyone plays because you just love it.
Yeah, it's fun.
You're just fun. And you're playing with mates. And then I think some kids have it and some don't. And that doesn't mean you're going to have a lot of success either. But I think as you get a bit older, you probably get you learn a bit more. You get a bit more competitive. You understand what winning and losing is all about. Whereas when you're young, you just play because you love it. You couldn't care whether you win or lost. Some kids, some are real competitive. But I don't know how you teach it, but I know that it'll take you a long way.
Yeah,
it'll get you to places or take you to the level that you might not possibly have reached. But it's a great thing to have, great trait to have. And some people have it, some people don't. But some people have stronger traits than others in all different aspects of their footy career. Someone, might want to carry the ball more than what you do. They love it. But for me, I don't know how you teach will to win. But one thing I will say with it is that it's a great trait to have. Great trait.
Loz, how do you block out white noise? Obviously, done it all as a player and then as a coach, there's obviously a lot of shit talking in and around sport, life. We all get it. Do you get flustered by that? Or do you have ways to deal with it?
Mate, no one loves criticism. No one loves criticism. So I think we're all accepting of that. You know that it's coming your way. As long as it doesn't get personal, you just got to accept whether it's right or wrong. You just accept it. But I've learnt over time that the people that you know you really well, family, friends, I try and tell them not to listen to it. And I don't get as affected as I once once did. And that's not to say I don't take criticism on board either, because some people might be right. So you've got to sort of balance it out between if you think you've warranted criticism, well, you've cop it. But there's times where you don't think you've warranted it, received it, but you can't do anything about it. It doesn't. I shouldn't say it doesn't worry me because no one likes it. But I think as a footy player, we just get on with it and we move with it. And as long as it's not personal, you just accept it. But I've learnt over time, as long as the people close to me, family, friends, and guys that know me, know what you're about, then it doesn't faze me. It honestly, it doesn't faze me where it used to.
So when you're a player, it was
when you're playing, you take everything personally, don't you? You take everything personally.
Then you retire and you go, it was actually all bullshit anyway. No one cares.
No one cares. But it's one of those, and that's what happens. We live in a rugby league world.
Yeah.
And
you step out.
When you step out of that rugby league bubble, you realise there's a bigger world out there. And just because someone has said that doesn't mean 90% of people are thinking that. At the end of the day, if you're a good person, you're a good person.
Yeah.
Someone's opinion might be different, and that's okay. And I know social media is big, and I know people use social media to their advantage. But sometimes it can be horrible. I don't use it, but I heard stories, and I have been able to not listen to a lot of things. So, do you enjoy it? No. Have I learnt to cope with it? Yep. Do you move on? I move on pretty quickly from it. But it's not to say that you don't like it.
Final few questions, Loz. Wednesday night in the Origin before they run out. Yep. What's your final message to them, if you can say it?
Final message, Toddy, would probably be somewhere along the lines of, making sure that you wear the jersey with pride and, look after one another. You're prepared well.
Yeah.
No fear. Just be confident in everything you do, and trust your ability. That's what's got you here, and that's what'll get the job done.
Yeah, we finished with 2 questions.
Yep.
Advice to young players coming through.
Work hard.
Yeah.
You've got to work hard. You've got to be a professional from the day you step your foot into the building. It's a tough game. It's a competitive game, and you've got to make sure that you're doing everything in your power to reach your ability if you want to be successful.
Yeah.
You can't be half-assed. You can't just think that you've got ability, so that's going to take me to where I need to get. You've got to continue to work hard, listen to the people that you trust, your coaches in particular, take their advice on board, surround yourself with good people, and you'll have a fantastic career.
And our last one is, it's a hard one to answer. Why are you so good, and what was your secret?
I think I was competitive. I think that's what gave me the ability to reach my potential. I love just competing and love winning. Hate losing. And I just wanted to compete on everything. And why?
What was the secret? You pretty much answered it.
Yeah, I think that was the secret, mate. Yeah. I just had it. I think I had it from a young age. I don't know where I got it from. I'm assuming I got it from just playing with older boys when I was young, and just knowing that you had to be.
Is there a way to find it, do you reckon?
Yeah, there would be, but I think everyone finds it differently.
Different ways.
In different ways. Not everyone is the same. So I think I found it because I played against people that were older.
Yeah.
And I knew from an early age that, hey, if you're going to play, if you're not going to compete hard, then you're not going to play too much longer. Because no one liked you when you were as a kid if you were crying and carrying on.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I think it was just playing with those older kids and just copping a hiding and learning how to deal with it and cope with it and try and be a better player for it.
Well, thanks, Loz. It's been a pleasure having you on, and good luck this year for the Origin Series. Obviously, us Blues will be cheering you on, mate. So do us proud, and we know you will. But we appreciate you spending some time with us here today, and for our listeners, they'll take some life advice out of it. But for young footballers also, it's some golden eggs there for them to take away and apply to their life to be the next up and coming league players.
Thanks, Toddy.
Thanks so much, Loz. Really appreciate it. You're a champion.
Cheers, boys.